Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Friday Ramblings. I'm, of course, your host, David, the Bardic One. And we're going to go ahead and do something a little retro. Something that, we touched on a little bit back in October during our spooky Halloween theme. But I wanted to give it a proper in-depth review. And that is the 90s TV show Sightings. Ooh, spooky. Look on the back. Alien. Ah! Aren't visual props fun? Yes, they are. Now, we're going to do a real quick breakdown of the hard, cold facts before we get into the personal, nostalgic, loving memories I have of this TV show because, hey, you want to end with the positive energy. So, Sightings was an American-based paranormal and news television show that originally aired in the early 90s. The show began as a special titled UFO Report, Sightings, on October 18th, 1991, eventually leading to two sequels, The Ghost Report and The Psychic Experience, before turning into a full-fledged TV show. The original concept creator and supervising producer of the original one-hour special was Linda Moulton Howe, an Emmy Award-winning TV producer and documentary filmmaker of various TV specials about science and the environment, including other supernatural-related ones. Now, the weekly show is the bread and butter here, folks. The weekly show ran for approximately 111 episodes over 5 seasons. The show was hosted by reporter Tim White, created by... Scary, little itchy itch there. Created by Ann Daniels Productions, Fair Dinkum Productions, and Wilshire Court Productions. And one of its executive producers is Hollywood legend Henry Winkler. Hey! Sorry, I'm culturally obligated to do that. I'll apologize. Apologies to Henry Winkler. I'm sure he hears that way too often. The program began on Fox in 1992 in 30-minute long formats that aired on Friday nights. When the show was put into syndication in 1994, as extended to an hour-long format, was on at various times. I personally remember watching it on Saturday afternoons, right after the cartoons ended around noon. In 1996, it was picked up by Sci-Fi Channel, and Sightings was canceled in 1997, although 5 special episodes were aired by Sci-Fi Channel in 1998. And reruns continued on that same channel until 2003. In 1998, the producers did make a new UFO special that aired on UPN that was hosted by Jim Forbes, and many of the other producers did launch a program in 2003 called Unexplained Mysteries that debuted in syndication. Now, sinuses. A lot of pollen in this part of the country, folks, so promise you I'm not getting the big scary plague here, but unfortunately I do occasionally have a little trouble breathing in the spring, but that's traditional. So, now obviously, as we saw from our visual prop, Sightings eventually got a book that compiled some of its most iconic cases. Look at that. Look at how thick that is. Including lots of photos. Woo! Ghosty ghosties. UFOs. gentleman that thinks he's a werewolf and got himself an exorcism. And this highlights one of the big things that made the Sightings show awesome. And that is that it did not just center on one particular part of the supernatural. It covered everything. It covered psychic powers. It covered aliens. It covered ghosts. We got cryptids. For those of you who are not familiar with the paranormal world, cryptids are defined as creatures who are thought to only exist in local legend and lore, and there is no current scientific evidence to back up their existence. Such as Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Abominable Snowman, the Phantom Black Dogs of Britain, Mongolian Deathworm, and many, many dozens of other local legends. It should be noted that some cryptids have in fact been verified as living, such as the coelacanth, which was a long-standing rumored fish among local fishermen when it was finally discovered. And initial reports of gorillas were very fanciful and often dismissed by scientists in Europe until finally some were captured and able to be presented to the scientific community, who was able to study them and separate the fiction and the fact apart, showing that these apes that walk like a man do in fact exist. Which is one of the things that make cryptids freaking awesome. Every so rare often, you do get one verified. Even if not every single legend and rumor about them is true. Now, setting aside, now that I've defined a little bit of a slang term there, one of the other things that made the show Sightings unique is that it was presented in a news format. This meaning that instead of like any given week having one case where a bunch of people went out with their little shaky found footage looking cameras, being super dramatic and overacting about how freaked out every little noise out in the woods or in this crooked old home makes them. These were handled like serious journalistic stories. Host Tim White was himself a former reporter, and as such made a wonderful host for a show in this format because he was able to speak about these stories in a way that was very akin to how the national evening news reporters introduced their stories about everyday living. The other benefit of this was by not relying as heavily on dramatic reality TV show style original footage and focusing more on interviewing the witnesses, showing existing photos and videos mixed with potentially a little bit of footage of their own. Should they manage to find it, they were able to present a format that treated this discussion of the supernatural in a very respectful manner that also did not beat the audience over the head with a particular biased perspective. This was a show that, like any good news show, and I do emphasize that because unfortunately in modern times not every news show is good, they stuck to the classic code of journalistic integrity, which is report the facts and let the audience decide for themselves how they feel about the story, not emotionally manipulate and bait the audience. Now, this little phrase right here, beyond imagination lies the truth. That was one of the key mottos for the show. Along with where's my notes? Where's my notes? Where's my notes? Notes. Ah, yes. No mystery is closed to an open mind. Thank you. Those two show mottos did, again, sum up the show's approach. No mystery is closed to an open mind, referring to the fact that, well, as is classically stated, once you remove... Wait, hold on, let me get my phrasing right here. I had it, and then I lost the back half of it. Dang it. But the basic statement of that is that, since I can't remember my classic idiom right now, pollen on the brain, or maybe the ghost has stolen my thoughts. Basic sentiment of the phrase, God, why will my tongue not cooperate? Being very dead. You look at me here. No mystery is close to an open mind refers to the fact that if you are willing to accept that upon examination of the evidence for what it is and removal of all bias of what you believe is impossible, you will find the solution no matter how fanciful it may or may not be. As I said, there is a classic idiom that says the same basic thing. I cannot remember it quite right. Currently, feel free to go ahead and recite it for me in the commentary. But that is an important key of the show because, as I said, the show presented information about things that not every person was going to encounter on a daily basis, proposed a couple theories, and then left it to the audience to decide for themselves if they were capable of accepting the evidence that was in front of their eyes. This leads us to the other great motto, beyond imagination lies the truth. Now again, this motto seems like it's trying to push the bias of supernatural is real. It is not. The simple fact of the matter is that the truth, a lot of times, and history has borne this out, especially when it deals with things that at one point was or was not a mystery. The reason things are a mystery is that the truth is not obvious, and that to find the truth you have to be creative enough to see what is not right in front of you and what is not painfully obvious to everyday truth. Hence, beyond imagination. You have to be willing to think outside the box sometimes to get to the heart of things that are not easily explained. However, in the interest of presenting a truly non-biased summary of these various supernatural events, Sightings was not afraid to encourage skeptics and hard investigation to evidence, and in fact would point out that certain categories of evidence, such as ghost photographs, are very commonly manipulated and hoaxes are created for them. In fact, they explain how, using late 80s, early 90s technology, and especially stuff from the 70s and 80s, old cases that Sightings would reopen and investigate with new fresh eyes, how this hoax evidence was created, along with UFO photos. I actually have to this day, and we are talking like 25 years or later, or longer, 25 years or longer, I can distinctly remember individual scenes from their story on how to create a very realistic looking fake UFO photograph. Because that's the thing. A lot of shows that have shown up there's a redundant phrase for you. A lot of shows that have aired on television, both before and after Sightings, have been so obviously slanted towards the "we want you to believe" stance that they don't even like saying the word hoax. They don't even like admitting the word hoax exists. Some do, but they also tend to be highly specialized in their pursuit. Ghost investigations being the most classic because it is the most primal to the human psychology, especially on a social cultural level. But as I said, sightings touch on everything. I remember reports showing how fake Bigfoot footprints were made, which were of course later photographed. That's me trying to say that were photographed a second ago. And that's one of the things I adored about the show as a child watching it, is that I was already interested in science, especially the scientific way of looking at things and investigating them. You analyze, you investigate, you break down, you look for things that you already know and use that to build up to this new knowledge, or explaining something away with the old knowledge. Like, oh, we totally know about this. This is actually something we've seen before. Look, this is just like this case. And that is what Sightings really tried to do for its audience, was assemble evidence, encourage the audience to think for themselves what they saw. Was it that which was presented, or could it all potentially all be hoaxes? They in fact even did follow-up reports on cases where new, startling, they loved that word on the show though, I will give them that. Can't quite say it the way Tim White did, because, again, professional reporter, but startling new evidence in this case has been unearthed, and we would like to give an update. Now, besides the book, Sightings also released 3 home video compilations on the big 3 subjects. They named them after the original 3 TV specials, although it should be noted that these were not VHS copies of the TV specials, simply them reusing titles they already had copyrights to. Thus, VHS owners had Psychic Experience, the Ghost Report, and UFO Report. I had these tapes. I now have digital copies of these tapes so that they live on my computer to survive time, because unfortunately VHS tapes do break down, and it's getting harder and harder to hook a VCR up to a modern TV. Now, as far as personal, as I said, I did watch this as a child because it did air in the early to mid-90s, which meant when it ended in 1997, I was only 15. I had already begun being interested in the paranormal. This is why I watched it. I remember watching these shows on Friday night. Later, in the 1-hour syndication, as I said before, Saturday afternoons, and that last season on Sci-Fi Channel in the evenings. And at the time, this was my favorite thing on television. It was everything I needed at that point in my life. Something that respected that things aren't always what they seem to be, both on the hoax level and the, hey, this is some kind of reality that most people didn't know was something they needed to know about. But at the same time, they never hard pushed either side. It all felt very professionally done, very respectfully done, and something that really wanted the audience to walk away having something to sit and ponder and stew in their brain for the rest of the evening, or in the case of the syndication, the rest of the afternoon, maybe even through the evening if it was a particularly entertaining episode. Now, it should be said that they did get one more little bit of spin-off, and that is that Showtime produced a fictionalized retelling of the investigation of one of their most famous alleged hauntings, the Heartland ghost. This, of course, the movie was called Sightings, the Heartland Ghost, and was produced in, note check, 2002. As I said, originally aired on Showtime, inspired by true events, but of course, being something made for the sake of entertainment, things were modified slightly from the actual events. Now, I do say it was one of the most famous cases in sightings history. To sum up, here is the point. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes that featured segments about the Heartland ghost investigation. For those of you who want to try to dig up these things or just like full-blown OCD notationing, this would be episodes 42, 43, 49, 50. Make sure I'm putting my, excuse me, let me check my camera here. Make sure I'm putting my, there we go. Keep my hands up where they can be seen, otherwise there's no point in me taking off for the audience. 42, 43, 49, 50, 57, 64, and 103. And those segments would be segment 1, 2, 8, 9, 16, 23, and 10 of those particular episodes. The film was released on DVD in 2004. I don't know if it's still in print production. I myself did not see it at the time because I had seen those original segments. I had yearned to have them all put together in one big compilation episode. If that had been put on DVD, I would have been a first-time buyer. It is discussed in the Sightings book. It is not discussed in any of the 3 compilation videos. I was really hoping it would have been in the Ghost Report, but probably because it was such a big case, it would have taken up most of the time that they had set aside for these specials. They did want all 3 of those best of video releases to be the same approximate length, which was 60 minutes. And the Heartland case alone would have been a 60-minute thing. So, I don't know. Now, the show itself has never seen a major box set release. I have not gone looking in recent years to see if the depths of the interwebs has a easy download collection, which is of course semi-legal obtaining, but it's like this. If Sci-Fi Channel or Paramount or whoever actually owns the show, I'm not sure about the ownership rights, but if whoever owns the archives of the Sightings TV show would put out a complete series box set, I would be a day one buy. As I said, I have 3 compilation best of videos digitized. I have watched them. I sat down and forced my girlfriend to watch them with me. I mean, she liked them, but yeah, as I said, unfortunately they are clearly a bit dated because we are talking about 25, almost 30 years for the first season. Years having passed, and you know, again, things of the supernatural investigations have proceeded. There are new cases. Ultimately, I don't really think I would be into a revival series, partly because I don't trust new producers to really do the show respectfully and with the same tone and theme to it. It was very much a creature of its time. I'm sure everybody involved back then is not still around and looking for work. As I said, some of them went on to a later supernatural themed TV shows. But I would be interested in seeing the original episodes put up on air somewhere. You know, just anything to where the series could continue to air for those of us who remember it from back in the day. Yep, I was just double checking my notes real quick, make sure I had never looked. Yes, that is true. There is not currently any major home video release of any individual season, let alone the complete 5-season series. Really, let's go ahead and call it 6 seasons, because if they really want to do a complete set and the footage it still exists, I would love to see the original 3 specials and some of the those handful of special Sci-Fi Channel did in '98 after the series proper had been canceled. Like, you could totally pack those in as like a season 0 and a season 6, which would be awesome. You know, nice thick box set. Thick box set of the entire run, just everything Sightings. Yeah, I would dig it. Now, again, final little bit of nostalgia level here. It just, I mean, as I said, the show was one of the things that cemented a lifelong love of the supernatural for me, because it was the first time in a major format I saw people treating this stuff scientifically, treating it seriously. Not a, hey, we're writing this to be spooky. Hey, we're writing this to convince non-believers. More of a, this is a compilation of knowledge that we would like to see people look at so they can decide for themselves if they can go beyond imagination to find the truth, and if their mind is open enough to solve the mysteries. So, there you go. This is my little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of peek into the things that built me. As I said, some of this information is kind of redundant if you watched my earlier Spooky for Life episode. This was a little bit more of the breakdown. We got a little bit more into the hard details of the Sightings TV show. So, for those of you who saw the old episode and think some of what I said here sounds familiar, yes, it does, because I have touched on Sightings TV show, but I wanted to make sure it got full-blown focus for itself. I want to go ahead and give a shout out, even if it is 30 years late, to those wonderful producers behind Sightings, to Tim White for being one of the best TV show hosts of all time, in my humble opinion, for what it's worth. I want to give a shout out to Fox and Sci-Fi Channel for putting the show on television and keeping it on television for 5 years. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody else who watched that show. No matter what age you were on when it originally aired, or what age you were at when it originally aired. One day I'm going to get my tongue to cooperate with us, folks. And I will say, for anybody who has never seen the show before but is interested in the supernatural, wants to see this rare format for viewing the supernatural and see the awesomeness of Tim White and his great reporter narrator voice, please join me as we go plumb the depths of the internet, find some videos online. I know the 3 best of videos, which do have the Tim White narration, are available online. I have seen them online. As far as individual episodes, I'm going to keep looking. But get your Tim White goodness. Get your ghost goodness. Get your UFO goodness. Get your psychics goodness. And heck, maybe if you're lucky, as I said, you'll find some of that cryptid goodness on the show too. Remember, whatever inspires you is good. Anything that you have nostalgic feelings for is good for you. We're not here to judge you. We're not here to hate you. We're here to celebrate the television, movies, music, comic books, and video games that entertained us, motivated us, and inspired us to become the people we are today. Because if you're watching this video, especially if you subscribe to our channel, hit that subscribe button down there below the video. Look at your good little subscribe button. So that you never miss an episode. I definitely thank you. Because I know you got a lot of things out there. And letting me be a part of your existence. And taking up your time every Friday. Or Saturday. Or whatever day of the week you choose to watch these videos. That means a lot to me. And heck, maybe one day you'll be waxing nostalgic about that Roulette Productions channel you used to watch. And how much fun it was. And how it gave you things to think about after you watched it. So, stay tuned. We'll be back in 7 with another discussion of pop culture paradise. Maybe my tongue and brain will manage to cooperate and get the right words out at the right time. And all things considered, we have our own motto on the show. And that is, be constructive with your criticism. Be open with your praising. And always be ready to have a good, proper discussion. See you in 7.